Welcome everyone. I hope you all are doing great. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Shilpi and I am from the digital marketing team at Minjar Cloud Solutions. Today we are presenting our next Botmetric webinar series of this year on tackling the threat landscape with AWS Security, hosted by Minjar Cloud Solutions. This webinar is presented by Amar, who is our AWS Certified Solution Architect and Botmetric Chief Evangelist at Minjar Cloud Solutions. We will get started with the webinar shortly. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your GoToWebinar panel. I will bring them up during the presentation, and we will also have some time for questions at the end. All right. So now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to Amar.
Hello everyone, this is Amar here. So today we'll be discussing AWS security do's and don'ts. We'll go through the basic fundamentals of AWS security and check that what all things you should keep in mind while moving your workloads to cloud or maintaining them there. So a small request, I think all of you will be on mute till Q&A session, and we'll open up for questions at the end of the webinar. So we are a premier consulting partner of Amazon Web Services. We mostly work towards cloud automation and solutions for AWS related solutions. So we are basically AWS architects, which help people to manage their cloud DevOps and cloud ops. We have a product line of named Botmetric. It's an intelligent cloud platform for cost management, security audit, DR audit, and DevOps automation for AWS cloud. And it's available as a SaaS product. So this session is not on a comparison between on-premise and cloud security, and will not do a technical deep dive into network security fundamentals, operating system level security, and database level security. We will talk more towards all the things which are more pertinent to cloud, because network security fundamentals, operating system, and database level securities have been there since long, and those are basics which are also carried on to cloud as well. So our agenda is we'll first go through security fundamentals of like shared responsibility and different types of services AWS has. And then we'll discuss the threat landscape, in which all areas we can perceive threat on, we get perceived threat on AWS. And then we'll look to some AWS security building blocks. Then we'll move on to best practices, do's and don'ts. And at the end, we'll quickly look at Botmetric and how it can help you in your journey on cloud from a security perspective as well. So AWS, so for AWS, information security is of paramount importance. Even for all business in this age of digitization, security is a really important thing. And as more and more businesses move to using AWS cloud instead of traditional IT infrastructures, there is a need for them to be educated in all the security considerations on AWS. Security is a core functional requirement that protects mission critical information from accidental or deliberate theft, leakage, integrity compromises, and deletions. So we'll look at how to ensure that you are following the best practices or not. So recently, around reInvent, AWS has published a white paper as well of four essential pillars of AWS well-architected framework. And among them, security is the number one. So as we all know, security is job zero on cloud. Uh, having said that, let's see the basics of AWS infrastructure itself. So you all should be already familiar with regions, severity zones, and endpoints, which forms the main components of the AWS secure global infrastructure. Uh, so you should use AWS regions to manage network latency and regulatory compliance. When you store data in a specific region, it is not replicated outside that region. Uh, but you can initiate replication of data across regions. You should select the region to store data with your compliance and network latency requirements in mind. Regions are designed with availability in mind and consist of at least two, often more than two availability zones. Availability zones are designed for fault isolation. They are connected to multiple ISPs and different power grids. They are interconnected using high-speed links, so applications can rely on LAN connectivity for communication between AZs within the same region. You are responsible for carefully selecting the AZ where your systems will reside. Systems can span multiple AZs, and we recommend that you design your systems to survive temporary or prolonged failure on AZs in case of disasters. And you can use edge locations to serve content closer to your customers. So there's a concept of share responsibility with AWS and their customers. AWS provides a global secure infrastructure and foundations services like compute, storage, networking, and database services, as well as higher level services. AWS provides a range of security services and features that AWS customers can use to secure their assets. AWS customers are responsible for protecting the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of their data in the cloud, and for meeting specific business requirements for information protection and compliance related issues. So let's take example of EC2. So in case of EC2, AWS is responsible for the facilities, the physical security of the hardware lifecycle management, the network infrastructure, the virtualization infrastructure, keeping separate connections for different customers, keeping their data in isolation. So all those things are AWS's responsibility. So there are different responsibility models with respect to different types of services AWS provides. So there are three different models here. One is infrastructure services, container services, and abstracted services. So infrastructure services are like EC2 or EBS or VPC, which forms the very core of Amazon infrastructure. And if you see here, the very foundation layer is being managed by AWS, and all the top layers needs to be managed by the customers, and they are responsible for the security on that layer. So building on the AWS secure global infrastructure, you can install and configure your operating systems and platforms in the AWS cloud, just as you do on your on-premise data centers. Then you install your applications on your platform. Ultimately, your data resides in and is managed by your own applications. AWS will provide tools you can use to protect data at rest and in transit. Alternatively, you might introduce your own data protection tools as well. Let's see. So again, let's consider EC2. So the things you are responsible for are AMIs, the snapshots of your instances, the operating system you choose, applications residing on the operating system, the data in transit, data at rest, also data stores, what you want to use, how much time, how much of which version, and all things you need to choose. Credentials, storing of credentials, policies and configurations. So all these things you are responsible for. The container service are like more one level on top of infrastructure services. The AWS shared responsibility model also applies to container services, and RDS and EMR are best example of container services. So here AWS manages the underlying infrastructure and foundation service as well as the operating system and the application platform. So in case of infrastructure service, you were responsible for the operating system and the application platform. For example, with Amazon RDS for Oracle is a managed database service in which AWS manages all the layers of the container up to and including the Oracle database platform. So all the patching and updating of these databases are done by AWS itself. If there is any security patch coming up, AWS will do it for you. So you need to worry slightly less. For services such as RDS, AWS provides data backup and recovery tools as well. But it's your responsibility to configure and use tools in relation to your business continuity and DR policy needs. Abstracted services. So for abstracted services, the best example are S3 and DynamoDB. AWS operates the infrastructure layer, the operating system, and platforms, and you access only the endpoints to store and retrieve data. Your responsibility becomes much less in case of abstracted services. So you are responsible for managing your data, including classifying your assets. You can also use platform provided encryption of data at rest, I think, which AWS provided themselves, or platform provided HTTPS encapsulation for your payloads for protecting your data in transit to and from S3 or DynamoDB. Only thing you need to worry about here is the access controls for those S3 buckets and DynamoDB tables, and also the encryption of data, but that facility also is provided with by AWS itself. You just need to use it. Okay, now assuming that you know what your responsibilities are and that AWS would take care of the parts of the infrastructure it has promised to, let's discuss what are the different threat landscapes you need to take care about. So these are the things which you as a customer need to worry. You get to define the controls within your AWS infrastructure. AWS provide tools and enables you to strengthen your infrastructure security. So access controls are like you can define who has access to which of your AWS infrastructure resources. You can define that. Network security means you can define rules of computer networks in traditional data centers. Same apply to cloud as well. You need to define how computers or instances in AWS lingo are connected and talk to each other over networks. Data security, of course, you are responsible for most of your data. With many of the AWS services, you must define rules and ways to secure your data in transit as well as at rest. Inventory and config, you need to know what all changes are happening in your infrastructure, who is making them, when they're making, is there any attack? So all those things. So if you look at it, so these are the four different landscapes in which you as a cloud practitioner need to take care about, and have a definite plan for each of these four different landscapes. So if you can see the ways in which somebody can attack your cloud or your data can be compromised are like again very obvious ones, like somebody has unauthorized access, somebody is trying to hijack your account or services. You can have some malicious employees itself. Then lack of understanding of cloud becomes a problem for a lot of our customers, and then comes the ever-present human errors, right? And if you see, as we discussed, infrastructure services, container services, and abstracted services. the level of responsibility you as a customer has decreases, and more control goes to AWS. So the with the responsibility, the threat surface area also decreases. Let's now discuss the building blocks of AWS security. So when you launch an instance from a standard AMI, you can access that instance using secure remote system access protocols such as Secure Cell SSH, or from Windows using RDP protocol. To enable authentication to the EC2 instance, AWS provides asymmetric key pairs known as EC2 key pair. These are industry standard RSA key pairs. Each user can have multiple Amazon EC2 key pair and can launch new instances using different key pairs. EC2 key pairs control access only to your specific instances. You can choose to generate your own Amazon EC2 key pair using industry standard tools like OpenSSL. Uh, you generate the key pair in a secure and trusted environment, and only the public key of the key pair is imported in AWS. You store the private key securely. It is advised to use a high quality random number generator if you take this path of creating your own key pair and importing to EC2. Identity and access management. This is one of the most critical components of the AWS secure global infrastructure. With IAM, you can centrally manage users' security credentials such as passwords, access keys, and permission policies that control which AWS services and resources users can access. When you sign up for AWS, you create an AWS account for which you have a username, most probably the email address, and a password. The username and password let you log into AWS Management Console, which helps you to manage your AWS resources. Now, what you should do is you should go and create a new IAM user and use that. IAM lets you create individual users within your AWS account and give each of them their own usernames, password, and access keys. Individual users can then log into the console using a URL that's specific to your account. You can also create access keys for individual users so that they can make API calls via SDKs and SLIs, CLI as well. You can also share access with third-party vendors or softwares like SaaS product like Botmetric using IAM. You can also share access among different AWS accounts using IAM. And there is also something called as AWS Directory Service, which allows you to integrate and federate with your corporate directories to reduce the administrative overhead of creating new users and ultimately improving your experience. Let's talk about network security building blocks on AWS. So EC2 forms the core service of cloud infrastructure on AWS. So with EC2, concept of security groups has come into being. Excuse me. With security, so security groups are virtual firewalls using which you can add multiple rules. You can say that okay, coming from inbound traffic coming from a particular IP goes to allowed to or at this particular port on this particular EC2 machine. So this kind of rules you can define using security groups. One security group can be assigned to multiple instances, and one instance can be attached to multiple security groups as well. So EC2 and security groups have many to many relation. VPC networking. So since the advent of VPC on AWS, it has become one of the core features of cloud security on AWS. It's a must-have. If you are someone who is still using EC2 Classic, you should move to using VPC networking. So the building blocks of VPC networking are the elastic network interfaces. You can create subnets which are completely aloof from outside world. It's like your own separate logical network on cloud. Network access control lists, route table, and internet gateway. So all this combined to give you flexibility in defining almost everything which you could on your premise systems, and also you can add AWS Web Application Firewall as well, which was launched recently to your systems. So the building blocks for data security are like the encryption services provided by all the inbuilt features on all the services of AWS. Uh, it offers you AWS offers you the ability to add an additional layer of security to your data at rest. Data encryption capabilities are available in AWS storage and database services such as EBS, S3, Redshift, and RDS. There is also a flexible key management option, including AWS Key Management Service, allowing you to choose whether to have AWS manage the encryption keys or enable you to keep complete control over your keys. You may need to take control of the keys for compliance reasons. And also, AWS provides a dedicated hardware-based cryptographic key storage as well. They have named it AWS Cloud HSM. Again, it allows you to satisfy compliance requirements. In addition, AWS also provides APIs for you to integrate encryption and data protection with any of your services you develop or deploy in an AWS environment. Inventory config, monitoring, and logging. AWS config is one of the awesome features of AWS, which I personally love. It lets you um, know what all things are there in your infrastructure, including all the regions. You can have it in your in a simple S3 bucket. So inventory and configuration management becomes easier with AWS config. It identifies AWS resources and then track and manage changes to those resources over time. So you can build a lot of tools or on top of AWS config, which can let you know that, okay, this many instances were removed yesterday, or this many instances were launched yesterday, or in last 7 days, what all changes have happened to your infrastructure. Similarly, AWS CloudTrail is also something which is a must for everyone to enable. So what it does is that it gives you deep visibility into all the API calls happening to your AWS infrastructure. It logs each and every API call, which tells you who has done it, from where it has been done, at what time it has been done. So it's very much necessary for audit purposes. Similarly, Amazon CloudWatch helps you in alert notifications. For example, you can create rules like if CPU crosses a threshold of say 50%, raise alert or something of that sort. Let's now move on to talking about the best practices, do's and don'ts in AWS. So with respect to EC2 key pair, you must rotate SSH keys regularly. So when you launch your instance in the start, AWS provides you one SSH key, right? Ideally, if it is your production instance with super mission critical information or data, you must rotate that SSH key, create a new key pair using a passphrase, and then and then replace it in the EC2 instance. And for your regular dev work and other maintenance works, enable MFA based login to SSH. Okay, and one more smart thing which can be done to lay off threads is change SSH port from port 22 to a non-standard port. This can be done very easily. Means you can find it out offline. And the things which you must not do, never do, with respect to EC2 key pair is do not keep private keys in temp or home directories. It's a very common practice which we have found across our customers, that they keep or their developers keep the key pairs in the home directories or in temp directories. You should move them to /user or /var, some which with very least permissions available. Also, do not keep unused EC2 key pairs. You never know who and when someone can use it. So it's better to remove any key pairs which are not in use. Uh, so with respect to identity and access management, there are a lot of best practices which you must keep in mind. Uh, you must create individual IAM users for all. What it lets you helps you do is to track that who has done what. If you are sharing your own credentials, then you will not be able to audit that. Okay, who exactly did it, and it's good practice to not share the same credentials among more than one person. So having individual IAM users is a must. It lets you have unique credentials, and you can rotate their credentials individually. You can give them fine-grained permissions. And the concept of granting least privilege must be kept in mind all the times. When you create IAM policies, follow the standard security advice of saying that least privilege. That is granting only the permissions required to perform a task. Determine what exactly users need to do and then craft policies for them that let the users perform only those tasks. Exactly only those tasks. And the level of granularity IAM has built within it, it lets you do some super awesome stuffs. I will talk about a few of them in a minute or two. It's more secure to start with a minimum set of permissions and grant additional permissions as and when necessary, rather than starting with a lot of permissions that are too lenient and then trying to tighten them up later. That becomes more difficult than if you have tighter permissions earlier and then trying to relax them. It provides you more granular control over APIs and resources as well. You must never give a policy like asterisk dot asterisk check across all your policies. If it is there, just remove it. You should try and create policy templates, small templates also you can create. Amazon, I think perhaps last year has come up with something which they have named it managed policies, using which you can create small policy templates and then add them to all your users. And using groups is even a better way to having all the permissions assigned directly to users. So, for example, you can create users like level 1 developers, level 2 developers, then team leads, then project managers, etc. And accordingly, you can map them to permissions on your AWS. So it helps you to manage all the responsibilities well, and it reduces your threat surface area. So, it's easier to assign the same permissions to multiple users. Simple to reassign based on change in responsibilities. You can easily add or remove users from a group or to a group. Uh, and and then, as I was saying just a few minutes back, that you can restrict privileged accesses further with conditions. So within IAM, you can create a lot of permissions like saying allow user to terminate instances only if the user has authenticated with their MFA device, or allow them to terminate instances only if they are accessing from a specific IP address, for example, office IP or home IP. So all these kind of IAM rules can be created. It lets you add additional level of granularity. It minimizes chances of accidentally performing any privilege actions like terminating an instance. And you can also define tag based or specific resource based rules. For example, if you have an intern within your team, you want him to try out few things. Give him one access to one particular specific instance. That is all, right? And if you have your development team, give them access to all the resources which has tag env equal to dev or environment equal to development, something like that. So all these things must be enforced within your teams. So configuring a strong password policy. So many customers do not know that they can go and create a password policy within their AWS systems. So what you should do is, as a best practice, that create a password policy. Do not let user define anything. Or so the things which you can define are like in how many days the password is going to expire, what kind of strength it needs, special characters, capital letters, all those things you can define. Can user reuse their old passwords or not? So you can do this by going to account settings page on the IAM console. You can create password policy for your account. Uh, Enabling MFA for all users. So so it is generally said that enable MFA for privileged users. So for those of you who do not understand what MFA is, it's multi-factor authentication. So so that lets you, it's kind of a second password to your system, and which is time dependent. So there are many hardware based tools as well as software like Google Authenticator, which can help you in generating MFA. So do not take chance. Enable MFA for all your users, even to those users who have only read-only permissions. You use roles for applications that run on Amazon EC2 instances. So what that is going to help you in is it lets you rotate keys automatically. So the applications that run on EC2 instances need credentials in order to access other AWS services. To provide credentials to the application in a secure way, you should use IAM roles. A role is an entity that has its own set of permissions, but that isn't a user or group. Roles also don't have their own permanent set of credentials the way IAM users do. In case of Amazon EC2, IAM dynamically provides temporary credentials to the EC2 instance, and these credentials are automatically rotated for you. So that's the benefit you have with using roles for applications that run on Amazon EC2 instances. And as I think I have mentioned it enough times, rotate credentials regularly, be it password, be it key pair, be it your encryption keys, rotate all of them on regular basis. If possible, automate the rotation. So few things which you must never do with respect to IAM is do not use your root account access keys at all. Create an IAM user for yourself and forget the root account. Stop using any third-party tools that asks for access keys and secret keys. It isn't safe at all. So what you should do is give them roles for cross-account access instead. So you should create a role, and the way those third party will access your infrastructure and your metadata is via assume role, STS assume role. So that way, anytime you are not sharing any credentials with them. Plus, you're ensuring that the connection will be done only from their AWS account. So again, the responsibility will be taken back to AWS itself. That the third party's AWS account needs to first authenticate that, okay, the request is coming from that specific AWS account itself. Plus, having role, you can anytime delete the role or change the permissions as you like. Do not have single role for all the users. Again, that will not be fruitful for you. Do not have too many users with administrative access. Have limited admins. Again, what it will do is it will reduce your threat surface area. Do not use old access keys. Rotate it. Let's now talk about quickly about network security. As you can see the image, that's one of the best practices architecture, in which you only have your web tier open to public. Rest your app tier and database tier are in private subnets. So staff can or your employees have access to a bastion or management tier, using which they can access your application level. And then database tier is completely aloof from everyone. It only talks to the application tier. And also the web tier you should have on port 80 or 443, mostly 443. If you have port 80 also, you can write redirect to 443. And if you're using ELBs, make sure that you have listeners for HTTPS or SSL. So keep only those instances in public subnets which needs to be accessed directly from internet, period. So on network security, from perspective of your instances and ability to SSH and all, you should limit access to common administrative ports, and that also to only a small subnet of addresses. This includes like port 22, 23, Instelnet, RDP, etc. And even you should limit access to your common database ports. So you should have some due diligence there. So access private machines within your VPC from outside via Bastion host. And on that Bastion host, you must install one intrusion detection system. OSSE is a open source host-based intrusion system which you can install. So, and also, as we have mentioned earlier as well, try to use non-standard ports for your internal applications. That will strengthen your security. Even if somebody gets into your systems, they will not be able to move further. So for example, instead of port 22, you can have, say, 6848 kind of ports. And again, I have mentioned this earlier, use HTTPS or SSL termination for your ELB listener security. Things which you should never do on AWS from network security standpoint is it's very obvious one. Do not keep open all rules. A lot of customers have been compromised by this simple small thing. When the developers or people launch their EC2 instances, in the beginning they do not try to narrow down the security group rules and give 0.0.0.0/0 for port 22. Means it's open for everyone to come and enjoy. So you must follow the rule of least privilege here as well. Especially, do not open port 22 for everyone. Do not allow UDP and ICMP on public instances. That will also open gate for a lot of attacks. Do not use IPs to allow intra-instance network access. Use security groups instead. So if you have two different sections of your application, for example, the web tier and your app tier, right? So do not create rules on, say, app tier based on the IPs of web tier. It's better practice to use the security group of web tier to provide access to your app tier. So on data security, of course, you have to ensure all sensitive data are encrypted at rest. Use native encryption provided with RDS, S3, EBS, etc. Ensure proper permissions for your S3 buckets. Do not give read access, write access to everyone. Use HTTPS, SSL almost always when transferring data over internet or across regions. And on inventory and config, enable all the facilities which AWS provides for logging and inventory management, and what happens to take care or have an audit trail for all of these things. You must enable AWS CloudTrail logs in all the regions, even if you don't have instances in that region. What if somebody gets hold of your access key, secret key somewhere and try launching in some region in which you don't have presence, but still they can launch on those regions, right? Because the access permissions are not yet region specific. So you must do that to know of those attacks. VPC flow logs again is a must to know that what all packets are coming into your network. So for many compliance regions, that is a must. ELB access logs, same thing. AWS config, same thing. Termination protection, again, you need to maintain that for all your mission critical instances. So what it enables you is it cannot, that those instances which has termination protection enabled cannot be terminated by any API calls. It has to be done manually by going to your AWS console. That brings me to saying that you have to ensure safety of your console as well. Okay, so let's quickly discuss how Botmetric can help you. Botmetric performs regular security scans. It detects and reports best practices violations. It proactively sends a summary email having list of important audit violations. You can view major violations detected by a security audit from a single pane. You can act on audit violations right from Botmetric. You do not need to copy ID here, go back to AWS console, perform 7-8 clicks, and then fix that issue. So here, for example, here itself, if you see 4-5 instances, and if you see that, okay, hey, these 4-5 instances are my production instances, you can enable termination protection right from here. It also provides step-by-step guidance to fix the audit violation. It supplies your team with enough information to help them go from problem to solution super fast. It also provides audit history and ability for on-demand audit. It lets you view audit history in detail, so you can compare, okay, did we improve or are we going down? You can download historical audit reports. And if any point of time after, if some attack or something, you can, or if you have performed a lot of corrections into your system, you can perform audit on demand as well. Uh, So let's quickly discuss why should you perform a security audit, or when should you perform a security audit. So the times when you should perform security audit is when there are changes in your organization. If you have stopped using any AWS service, then you should perform security audit and check that, okay, where all those permissions were there for that AWS service, you need to remove them. If you have added or removed a software, then also you need to perform a security audit. If you suspect an unauthorized access, then definitely you should perform a security audit. But having said that, it's better to do it on a regular basis, like a daily or even a weekly security audit, because cloud infrastructures are mostly moving. You have a lot of resources added, removed on a daily basis. And with the responsibility of cloud, with the freedom of cloud, a lot of responsibility comes in as well. So now developers can launch instances, do a lot of things. So you must perform audit on daily basis. I will quickly show. So as you can see, there is a thorough sections of security audit sub audits which is performed by Botmetric. You can see old IAM access keys you can remove from here itself. Root access keys, you must never have root access key. If CloudTrail is enabled or not, S3 bucket permissions are too open or not. So a bunch of checks are performed by Botmetric for you. So to recap it finally, the trick is to be vigilant, audit regularly, rotate keys and credentials, always follow the principle of least permissions, do not use root account, keep your security group rules tight, wherever possible, enable MFA. So for further reading, you can visit these places. Um, I think I believe I took slightly more time. So we'll open it up for questions. And if we are not able to answer all the questions, we will revert with answers on emails to all of you. With this, I would like to give the handle back to Shilpi. Shilpi, you there?
Yeah, hello. Well, thanks, Amar. I'm sure these expert tips will definitely help our attendees today to add some extra layered security to their critical data on AWS Cloud. So with that, I would now like to request all our attendees to come up with their questions. We are now open for the Q&A session. So we have our first question coming up from one of our attendees, Rajiv. He wants to know which are the top 3 critical security areas he must look at to better protect his data on the cloud. So with that, he particular wants to know about the access controls and network security.
Yeah.
Amar,
Yeah.
what
So
are your take on this?
yeah, so I think we have discussed it in pretty detail. The top three things are like do not share your credentials. So I'm talking about top three from perspective of AWS cloud and cloud infrastructure in general, not from perspective of your network OS and database security. So you should the top one will be my access to my AWS management console, because if someone gets key to that, they can create havoc. So having access to one EC2 instance and having access to your management console are very different things. So if you have heard about CodeSpace, they went out of business because somebody got access to their AWS console. So that I
Muted.
Amar, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so we have a question coming from Ganesh. Can you tell me one real-time scenario with respect to your AWS cloud security?
Can you tell me one real-time scenario with respect to AWS cloud security? Okay, very simple one is that
Yes.
if you have your developers who are using access key secret key within their code, and somebody got access to those access key secret key, and that code was available on GitHub, somebody can start launching instances very easily. So because this happened to one of our customers recently. So that's where rotating keys regularly comes into picture, plus enforcing a lot of IAM roles, plus not using access key, secret key itself comes into picture, and instead use roles so that those things can be prevented.
All right. Thanks, Amar. I guess, Ganesh, we have
I think Prashant has one question.
addressed your question. Yes, Prashant wants to know, can we set an IAM policy on each instance on the same reason? Say, let's suppose I have some account in Singapore region where I have access to launch EC2 instance. Now I created a new user. Now I want that prod user, he should not be able to see the instances that were created by the dev user. So that's something which Prashant wants to know.
Yeah,
Amar?
that can definitely be done. One small thing I did not understand, that is the question related to region. So because region wise you cannot do it, but you can definitely say that if you have proper tagging discipline within your team, and if a person who is a prod user is creating an instance with a tag saying environment equal to production,
Hello?
and if others are saying instances, and if developer instances are tagged with tag saying environment equal to dev, in that case it can very easily be created. So answer is that yeah, I want to do it on the same region. Yes, Prasant. So in same region also it can be done. So IAM policies are region agnostic. So the thing which I was mentioning, that you cannot say that okay, this particular user has access to everything on region A and this particular user has access to on everything on region B. So this cannot be done. But within same region, you can definitely define, say that okay, a set of instances have access means user one has access to a set of instances and user B has access to another set of instances. So that can very easily be done using IAM roles. I will try to send you a link as well after the webinar, which may help you.
All right, I think Prashant, for more details, I will share my email ID with you. You can get in touch with us. We would love to explain the whole thing to you in detail. Any more questions?
Yes, so Prashant had one follow-up question. That means we can limit user to AWS console. Yeah, definitely you can limit to AWS console as well as your APIs as well. So yes, for those instances, the user will not be able to perform all the things which you don't want him to perform. So IAM has yeah, improved a lot.
All right, Amar, there's another question coming up from Nagaraju. He wants to know how can we implement a security for the S3 buckets?
Yes. So for S3 bucket, if you remember, it falls under the abstracted services category, wherein you do not need to worry about the platform, the OS. So the way you can do is, the first thing you can do is you can encrypt your S3 data. The second thing what you can do is create the means provide bucket permissions to those buckets. That's very easy to do. You can go to your S3 control panel and provide the permissions. You can also use IAM policies and roles to do that. So you can also provide fine-grained rules like saying that only get permission or only post permission or only read permission. So all these granular things you can do. So you can also say that okay, this a policy, you can also create a policy saying that only someone can list the details of the bucket and not even download a bucket. So all those fine-grained permissions can be set fairly easily on AWS. So Nagaraj says thank you. Isan says thank you. All right, Silpi, I think we can answer to further questions via emails. So I would request everyone to key in all their questions. So we will still keep the webinar running for next 1 hour. Sorry, next 1 minute. So sorry, and we'll let you type in all the questions you have, and I'll ensure that those get answered via emails. Thank you, everyone, for
All
joining.
right. Thanks, Amar. Thanks, everyone. I hope this session had been helpful to you. We appreciate your patience and we apologize for the bad connectivity here. Okay, you can get in touch with us for any queries if you have anything related to AWS. You can find us on social media. You can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. I have shared my email ID, so you can anyways get in touch with us with all your questions. We would also love if you want to have a live demo or a demo for Botmetric. We welcome you for that. So have a great day. Thank you all.